There's something called inner scoreboard. That if you've had success in life, maybe professionally, maybe socially, you're a beautiful woman and you have confidence. It's an inner scoreboard that you have confidence in social situations. Maybe you're a very funny guy. You're very confident around people because you've had success your whole life. Maybe it's professional success, whatever it is. The inner scoreboard. A lot of people flex their outer scoreboard. I am great. But people with an inner scoreboard don't have to tell you that. And that's the Lakers. To give you an understanding of the Lakers-Clippers relationship in Los Angeles, we all know the Lakers have 17 titles and the Clippers have never made a conference championship series. The Lakers' all-time leading scorers when they were in L.A., Kobe to Jerry West to Kareem to Elgin to Magic to James Worthy to Shaq. The Clippers' all-time leading scorer is Randy Smith. It is different, and there is a confidence about the Lakers walking into any series with the Clippers, especially a playoff series. They've won so many. In Los Angeles, it's not just the Lakers are the big brother and the Clippers are the little brother. It's not just 17 titles to 0 finals. It is the way in which the Lakers see themselves in the world. And a prime example of that was the last week. Last night, the Clippers lost to the worst team in the NBA. Oklahoma City, before last night, had played 24 games, and they were 1-23. And the Clippers lost to them because the Clippers tanked. The Clippers did not want to win. And when it was close late, you knew they'd lose anyway because nobody's worse late this year than the Clippers. And by the way, they lost to Houston before that, the second worst NBA team. Why would the Clippers do that? Because the Clippers are so terrified of facing the Lakers being on their side of the bracket that they tanked to Houston and Oklahoma City. So now the Clippers will face Dallas. Allergic to defense, the Clippers should win that series. Defense tends to matter a lot in the playoffs. After that, they would face Utah, a team I think the Clippers actually match up very well. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, they don't have an athletic wing to stop either. But what did the Lakers do in the last week or so? The Lakers have been hobbled all year. AD can't stay healthy. Dennis Schroeder was out, COVID protocol. LeBron James nagging high ankle sprain. And what did the Lakers do? They finally got healthy about 10 days ago. They won 5 straight games, and when asked about the playoffs, LeBron said, I don't care who we play. I don't care where we're seated. I'm not even going to be 100%. Ready to go, baby. Bring them on. And that is the difference between the Clippers and the Lakers. LeBron James in his 18th year and his running mate, AD, who's brittle, have been hobbled all year in this condensed season. And they're like, yeah, we're healthy. We won 5 straight. Bring on the Nets. Bring on the Bucks. Bring on the Sixers. Bring on the Warriors. Bring the whole league all ready to go. The Clippers, who have been healthier and better all year, are terrified. So we'll tank to Oklahoma City and we'll tank to Houston. Now, I know what you're saying. Colin. That's because they're resting. Really? You think the Clippers can rest after melting down last year, Joy and I as witnesses in the bubble, having no chemistry, and oh, by the way, this year, being the worst good team in the NBA in clutch points. They should take time off? LeBron and AD won the title last year. They wanted to get games in late. And the Clippers are like, nah, we got it all figured out. No, you don't. No, you're terrified of the Lakers. You see this all the time in UFC. You see like 2 female combatants, 2 guys walking in. Boy, yeah, both look confident. It's going to be a war. And after about 2 minutes first round, one of them's going forward and one of them's going backward, right? Everybody looks the part. Everybody talks the part. Everybody markets the part. Everybody promotes the part. The Clippers are terrified of the Lakers, and the old hobbling Lakers are, come on, bro, let's go. If they met in an octagon, the Lakers would be moving forward and the Clippers would be backpedaling. Got to respect that. Got to respect the Lakers. falling apart. We don't care where we're seated. Let's go. Chris Broussard, my buddy Fox Sports analyst, joining us, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. I mean, Chris, so the Clippers appear so terrified of the Lakers that they tanked to Houston and Oklahoma City so they don't have to play the Lakers. I'm not the only one that noticed that, right? Like, that's real. That's what happened this weekend, right?
It is real. All right? It's real. I've talked to people. It's real. And it is weak. I mean, the Clippers just keep disappointing me. Last year, I picked them to win the championship, and they just melt down against the Denver Nuggets. And this year, you purposely avoid the Lakers. And let's keep it real. You might still get the Lakers early.
Yeah, you could.
Because they're fourth, right? If the Lakers finish eighth, and you could meet them in the second round. So you've avoided them in the first round. But I don't like that mentality. You got Kawhi Leonard, a two-time champion, and Paul George, one of the better players in the league, and Rajon Rondo, playoff Rondo, and all the other guys, and you're afraid of the Lakers? Come on. You can't be thinking about that. And it might be best, Colin. I would probably, you want to get past the first round, but I might rather meet the Lakers in the first round than in the conference finals.
Yeah.
Because if the Lakers get to the conference finals, that means they're clicking. It means by that point, LeBron and AD are probably, as close to 100% as they're going to get this year. And they're confident and they're rolling. You meet them in the first round. They didn't have as much time to prepare because they may have had to play in. They had to play in. Or at that point, they wouldn't have had to play in. But, you meet them in the first round, it's a little different. And so they're not quite as together. So I just think it's just not a bad precedent to set. And I'm not saying that they didn't talk to all the players and say, hey, let's tank, But they avoided the Lakers, and I don't like that sign. I don't like what that says at all.
It's interesting. I mean, LeBron's gotten to a point where I was talking to Nick Wright yesterday, and he brought up an interesting point. He said, for all of AD's injuries, he's never missed a playoff game. Lakers, New Orleans, never missed a playoff game. So he's ready when you need him. And I almost think this is the year. Like last year, LeBron and AD got kind of a break with the pandemic, 4.5 months off. Well, that is what LeBron needs for his body. This year is the opposite, which is a condensed schedule, 2 months, play again. And so some of this you could forecast that LeBron and AD, this was going to be difficult for their bodies. But yesterday, LeBron tweaked his ankle again. And I think to myself, let's just be realistic. LeBron's going to miss a playoff game or two. If LeBron does miss a playoff game or two, and they have to be led by AD, do you still like him winning the West?
Well, they may be able to massage it to what playoff games he misses. Like if it's a situation where they're up 3-0 or even 3-1, and then they can rest him, it's not like he got a tweak or anything, but it's just bothering him a little and he can rest, then that's different. But if he gets hurt again, and he's not hurt to the point where he's out for the whole playoffs, but he can't play a game or two, I don't think AD can carry them. Like, if LeBron misses a game or two, it has to be by choice because they're resting him because they are up big in a series. Losing him in the middle of a competitive series and having AD carry you, I don't think he can. One, he couldn't carry a team in New Orleans, and I get it. He was young for many of those years. But this year, when many people, including myself, thought he would step up off that championship and go for the MVP award, he did not get it. His whole offseason was thrown off and all that. But so was everybody's, okay? And AD, he's played better of late, yesterday notwithstanding. He's had some big games the last week or so. But no, I don't think he could carry them in huge games against another top-notch team. They need LeBron.
So there is some rumbling in Boston about Brad Stevens. And, maybe he's worn out his welcome. And I've always had kind of a belief when you're considering firing somebody, not saying the Celtics are, is how long will they be unemployed and could they go to your rival? Doesn't matter if it's TV business. Doesn't matter if it's the law business. How long will they be unemployed? Could they go to a rival? And the answer with Brad Stevens is 5 minutes and yes. Because if Budenholzer doesn't win with the Bucks, they'd run him out, and Brad Stevens could be coaching Giannis because he's a Midwestern guy. He'd take Milwaukee in a second. And by the way, you want no part of that. So, it's very easy to stand up there. It kind of feels like the Andy Reid Philadelphia thing that you fire Andy Reid and 5 minutes later, a really good organization goes, yeah, we'll take Andy Reid. When I hear these Brad Stevens rumors, I'm like, I'd be careful because I think these Eastern teams with talent, obviously Miami's going to stay with Spoelstra forever, and I think Doc's safe for years. Right. But I don't know. When I hear Boston and Brad Stevens, I think just make sure you don't face him for the next 5 years. Your thoughts on Stevens in Boston?
I think that makes a lot of sense. Look, Brad's a very good coach. If I were Danny Ainge, I would be looking at giving him at least one more year. Let's see what happens next year, because a lot of things went wrong. Gordon Hayward, they lost him. He was important. We know he was overpaid. He didn't play like the superstar that they thought he was in Boston, but he was a ball mover and he was good for that team. And so that was a big loss. Kemba Walker, the knee is not the same. So he is not the same. So there are a lot of other factors. Here's the concern I have about Brad, and I've had it for years. There are some coaches in the NBA who can coach, they'll maximize limited talent.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously he's had Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for a while. But when they first got there, they were young, okay? And they're going to go in there. They're going to listen to the coach. They're going to, soak up everything they can. And they don't have that superstar ego yet, okay? But now they're superstar. Jason's darn near a superstar. He's a star. And Jaylen was an all-star, obviously. That I question whether Brad can handle the blue chippers. He can handle the Honda Accords. Can he drive a Maserati? Right. Can he drive a Mercedes? Because he couldn't handle Kyrie. And now you see things have kind of gone sideways this year as those two guys have emerged as stars. And at Butler, you're not getting the blue chip athlete. You're getting the guy with the chip on his shoulder because he wasn't good enough, or at least they said he wasn't good enough to go to Arizona or Kentucky or someplace like that. So I'm not saying he can't, but that's a question that I've had about Brad. It didn't work with Kyrie. So that's what they've got to figure out in Boston. But I would not get rid of him after this season. I'd keep him. Yeah,
by the way, what do you make of Steph's year? He is the greatest shooter of the basketball in my life ever, probably. I've always found, maybe it's because of his kind of nerdy shoe line. He likes to golf. He goes to bed early. He's kind of married. He's not as cool as some people like. And there's been a certain amount of disrespect toward him. But I watch him this year, and I'm like, God, 33 a night. And Golden State this year has been a little bit of an uneven, injury-riddled mess. Kelly Oubre, Andrew Wiggins, Wiseman got hurt. They've got no size. It's like, this team's not very good, right? It's the smallest team in the league now. What do you make of his year?
Well, and I believe there were 37 and 26 with him.
Yeah.
And I might be slightly off, but 2 and 7 without him. And you're right. Look, anybody, whether they're a fellow player or a commentator or observer who didn't respect Steph Curry and said, well, yeah, Clay was drawing a lot of attention and Draymond was there and, Andre Iguodala even. And then Durant came and, yeah, sure, Steph could shine. He had to earn your respect this year. Now, I never felt that way about him. I believe, Colin, I think I was the first, but maybe I was one of the first on national TV to say he was the best shooter of all time back in 2015. But this year, what he did, I do think individually, it was probably better than his second MVP year, which was when he averaged 30 points, 7 assists on 50, 40, 90. Now, this year he didn't hit the 50, 40, 90, but he averaged fewer assists. But he was doing it against constant double teaming and sometimes triple teaming. And yet you had no one else to worry about. And yet he still dropped 32, carried this team to the playoffs. He's phenomenal. I've said he is the best small or under the rim player of all time, slightly edging out Isaiah Thomas. And now I think he just, even though they're not going to win the finals or get there, I think he backed it up this year. He won't be MVP. He was 5th on my ballot because he's 8th seed. I'm sorry, he's 8th seed. But he had a phenomenal year.
Good. So you've had a very good year.